Why do some legislators seem to think we've got to tax? The governor has even proposed these speed cameras and, added additional fees. Quite often we're hearing the term fees rather than taxes, but we all know they're a form of taxation.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is where I have a real advantage. I'm not a politician. I've spent my, last 30 years in business. I've met a payroll. I've, got a return on investment. I understand how to use technology to do more with less. And I really understand what it takes to create jobs, and I deeply understand the economy. And really, you're exactly right. If we could only do one thing, it would be to create the conditions for small businesses to grow and thrive, where if you were a medium-sized business and thinking about expanding, you'd have no doubt that the best place to expand would be in California. But today, people go to Nevada, Arizona, Colorado because it's cheaper, easier, and simpler to do business. And as long as we can't compete effectively with our neighboring states, we're going to continue to lose out, and we can't let that happen. And I think we can be the best place to start and grow a business. It just takes, a small number of changes in how we run the state, and frankly, an attitude from the top, which is, what, we are going to set a goal. We're not going to lose another job to a neighboring state. We're just not. And if we have that attitude, I think, just about anything is possible here.
Meg, we all know you've never had a political job or held political office before. Some folks and citizens are critiquing that. How can we believe that you can steer the state into prosperity? And we've talked about that, and I agree with you. I think some folks say government's not like business. You can't run government like a business, but I say government needs to stay out of business, first of all, and run themselves. So I agree with your philosophy. You know how to run a business, which I think is the way we're not running this government right now, because it's free money. It's like the cookie jar is always open. We'll figure it out some way. And our legislators keep, you mentioned there's almost 700 bills that the governor signed. Many of them are not enforceable. They were all a waste of time. And yet it's business as usual. And we've got to close the cookie jar and say, look, we've got to deal with what we have available.
You're right. I mean, you're absolutely right, Barb. The truth is we have a government we can no longer afford. So let's get about fixing it. And I do think, at this time in California's history, I think I might be uniquely suited because I am an outsider. I've run businesses for 30 years. And you're right, the government isn't a business and won't be a business, but a healthy injection of efficiency, effectiveness, getting out of the way, making a small number of rules, and creating the conditions for small businesses to grow and thrive. It's not the government's job to create employment. What the government can do is create the conditions for small businesses to set up and get going and expand in this state. And I know a tremendous amount about this economy. I've created jobs. You probably know on eBay, nearly 1 million people make most, if not all, of their living selling on eBay. And
yes.
So I have a great deal of experience in small business. And I think that this state, California's history and the challenges we face, that background is going to be extraordinarily effective.
Meg, let's talk about some other important issues in the state. I actually had several folks email me and ask you about gun control, and also couple that with the new ID for ammo bill that Kevin De Leon saw through. First of all, let's just take it in sections. How do you stand on gun control?
So I think we have enough gun control laws on the books in California. We should enforce the laws that we have, and we don't need new incremental laws.
So are you in favor? I think the bottom line on that would be citizens that do want to keep a weapon in their home for protection, or hunters.
Absolutely.
There seems to be an underground.
I'm a strong advocate of the Second Amendment, and let's not put any new gun laws on the books. I think we have enough, and let's enforce them. And the Second Amendment is incredibly important to every American.
That's good news. Now let's talk about that ID ammo bill. You've got to give a thumbprint and all kinds of crazy things.
I was not in favor of that. It seemed overcomplicated. It seemed unnecessary. And even as I talked to a number of law enforcement officials, they were not even sure that this was going to be helpful to them in solving crimes. So my view is this is one of those things where, let's not continue to add regulation upon regulation upon regulation. Let's, make a small number of rules, get the heck out of the way. And so this one seemed unnecessary to me.
Okay, let's move to our borders, illegals in this state, how we're going to address that. Many are saying if we didn't have the drain on our economy in California with illegals, certainly we all recognize we'd be in better shape. So what's your position on illegals and our border protection?
Yeah. Well, first is I am 100% opposed to amnesty. That is absolutely the wrong direction for us to go. So here's what we've got to do. And this is actually a federal issue.
Yes.
The governor of California has only limited influence. But I will say the next governor needs to weigh in more heavily on this issue than we have in the past. So the first thing is we have to secure the border of the United States of America. We need more resources. We need a second fence. We need the technology that the Border Patrol agents can use. And it's only been in the last really 6 to 12 months that I would think most Border Patrol agents would tell you they've had enough resources. And we need to secure this border. Then we've got to hold employers accountable for hiring documented workers. We need to build what I call an economic fence. Because if we don't do that, the lure of good jobs is going to continue to bring people across the border illegally, which is not sustainable. So let's build that economic fence. And then we've got to eliminate sanctuary cities. And, the worst case of a sanctuary city is in my neck of the woods up in San Francisco. It's in direct violation of federal immigration law, and we shouldn't let it stand.
Oh, and I know Maywood here in Southern California. I've read stories in that issue. That's good to know that we're looking at those very solid approach to what we can do to protect ourselves in California. Let's change up. I've got to talk to you about water delivery, a big issue in this state. What are we going to do?
Well, this is a symptom of a much broader problem, which is we have an infrastructure that is built for a population half our size. And it's not only the water conveyance system, it's highways, it's all kinds of different issues. So where I stand on water is, first in the short term, I probably almost a year ago actually called for the pumps to be turned on. We have got to get more water to the farmers, particularly on the west side of the Central Valley. It's a humanitarian crisis. I mean, I don't know if you've been up there, Barb. It will break your heart. There are employment rates at 35%, 39% in some of the towns in the Central Valley. It's truly a crisis. And then long term, we have got to build more above and below ground storage. We've got to build an alternative water conveyance system. We all have to do a better job on conservation. So, the water bond that has been passed by the legislature, I am in favor of it. It wasn't an easy decision for me because it is not a perfect bond. There is, $2 to $3 billion of pork in that bond that I think is not necessary. But I'm a pragmatist, and I think, perfect is the enemy of progress here. And if we let this opportunity to go, you and I are going to be having the same conversation 5 years from now and 10 years from now, and we're going to still have a water crisis. So I think we have to move forward and get this bond passed and start to solve the long-term water crisis. And it's not just for the farmers. It's, people in Los Angeles, San Diego. We got to solve this, or we're going to be paying for this in ways we can't even imagine.